like you look back at the old days, don't you? And it's the little stories, and we live on them. It's because we were talking, John, and one of my big memories is I'd met you a couple of times, and you came out on training camp to Malta, and we had that amazing race that the Malta triathlon people put on, and it was
Gozo to Malta.
Gozo to Malta. Started with that run, 8-mile run, which was quite amazing. The whole of the island from west to east, that huge descent, and then off we go, boys. 3-mile swim, and can you imagine?
Put your wetsuit on. So finish 8-mile run, put your wetsuit on, and then swim. What was it? 2.5, 3 miles?
3 miles. And that was. Can you imagine what that would do to your core temperature? You're getting in from boom, you're right up there, goes in, still protected, and then it was through Camino, and then you have that awful channel where it just dropped down to 300 foot, and then cycle from the whole of the northern Malta right down to the south, the pretty way, allegedly. That was, oh man, that was something special. And do you remember? I think it was the year you did it, Jo Hind. She was about 16 and she did it, and she got into that little bay where we finished, and the wind kept basically pushing around in circle, and Rianne actually beat her. She was about 15 minutes and could not get out of the water. Oh wow!
I remember because I turned up and there was always I want to do that race, but as you know, swimming wasn't my strongest. I was a competent swimmer, but certainly had no sort of great background in it.
But I remember we were going over on the ferry. They used to pick us up about 5 in the morning, take us up to Chikawa, then we go over on the ferry, and there was Matthew Belfield was having this big greasy burger for breakfast, totally confident it was fine, and you were...
Green.
I was going to say not quite pink, but I think green was the colour. I just thought, oh geez, John, you're gonna hurt on this one. It's a great race. Great times. There's some good times back. You Spencer Simon. I mean, that was always the big fight. It was a bit like Steve Ovett and Seb Coe. You know, we like Spencer because he's rough and tough and a Londoner, or we like Simon because he's so smooth and he just wins everything.
I always thought Simon was like a BMW or a Mercedes. It would always work. It was always classy. You knew what you were getting, and what you were getting was always going to be great. Spencer was a little bit maybe more Alfa Romeo. Lots of power there. Occasionally it would misfire, but when it worked, he was an absolute monster, and just a joy to watch. And I think going back 20 years, in a sense, when I watch particularly Alistair race, there's elements of Spencer. I get on the start line, I'm just going to smash it. I believe I'm so strong and I'm so fast, and I don't care. Forget tactics, just go. And that was.
He was. One of my big memories with Spencer and Simon was, and you'll remember this, John, down at Bath, and they were probably the best 2 athletes in the world at the time. And Spencer's dad, Bill, who I love to bits, and one of the nicest men I've ever met. Bill used to get totally involved, didn't he? And I think his language went, how should we put this, a little bit less than poetry for some time, and it was out on BBC, and we were in Cancun for World Championships shortly afterwards, so that must have been 95, I think. But 95.
So early 90s,
And the BTA, as was then, they asked me to have a quiet word with Bill. Can you imagine a quiet word with Spencer's dad? So 10 o'clock in the morning, I rocked up at the hotel, and Bill was at the bar, surprised. Hello, Steve. Oh boy, come and have a beer. Come up. So there I am with the great Bill Smith at 10 o'clock in the morning, having a beer with him, about to tell him off. And I said, Bill, I've been told, he said, Steve, I know what you're going to say. I hold my hands up. I was wrong. Have another beer. And I think that was it. So out on this IOC training camp by 12 o'clock, having several beers with Bill Smith. But the man was a legend. He was the nicest man out there. He treated every single athlete all the time. He was just the nicest man. Most people in the sport are nice, aren't they? You think back, we talked about Sean a little bit earlier. How lovely was Sean? You look at the guys now, Jodie Stimpson out there, I was telling you, John, about the non-factor up at Leeds. One of the girls that I know trains up there, and everyone is ranked on the non-factor because she's perfect. Let me think about this. But isn't it nice that we think of them like that? So many people out there, we see that public persona, and you don't see the real person behind. I think with Jodie, with Helen, wow, with Non, you look back at Spencer, they were real. And sometimes we forget the person behind the big facade.
I think the sporting attracts that sort of person. And I remember I had a chat to Paul Amy a couple of years ago, and one of the things I was saying was, I look back sort of 20 odd years when he was in the junior world championships, and we went through some of the names in that top 20, and probably 15 of those names would be names that would be familiar to people 20 years later. So even the pros, you get into the sport because it attracts you. It's what you want to do. You like the environment, the people, the racing. So even for some of those people, long after maybe their ability to be at the very top level, to be earning the big money, they're still either involved because they're still racing, they're still coaching, they're still involved in other areas, and that's no more true as it is for them as it is for us, because that's what we do in different ways with clubs, with coaching, with media, with other stuff. And
you look at Richard Hobson, comes and does Virgin London last year and wins the long bike variation of it. I mean,
this Richard Hobson on the front cover of 220 issue number 9, January 1990. The first 220 that I ever bought. 23
years down the line, still racing, still winning. And not winning an age group, winning the overall stuff. Yeah, goes on forever. Dave Scott, he's maybe the greatest male Ironman triathlete ever, but people argue about that. And he's still racing. You talk to Dave and I'm thinking of coming back. And yeah, you'd be a great age group. I won't race age group. So there's a guy mid-50s and he's still that whole attitude. And again, has so much time. Chrissy Wellington, I don't think Chrissy ever gets away from a race till the next day, because everybody lines up for the photo, the signature, and she does it. It's great. We have a great sport. Oh God, what a cliche, but it's true. Yeah, it is true.
I think one of the areas that we talked about how the sport's going to develop. We've seen it to a certain degree, but in the same way that triathlon had the big boost from Olympics in 2000. When we go to Rio, we've got the para-tri is going to be official full medal sport on the programme, and that is really going to start pushing, I think, people like Faye McClelland into the public consciousness in the same way as we get your Hannah Cockcrofts and your Johnny Peacocks that we've seen from the magnificence of 2012 and the Paralympics, and that again should be another great step forward for our sport to a wider audience.
The 2012 Paralympics was a game changer because you look back at some of them previously and the crowds weren't there wasn't the public awareness at all. London, we changed that. Every single day at that stadium it was solid. Evening sessions, there were people queuing outside begging to get in. And as you say, the people now, they turn up and it's, oh great, how are you? And it's, we don't see the disability, and that's a real positive thing. We see the athlete and we see what they've done, and that's magic.
I've certainly seen that through when doing commentary at races. It's very easy for the wider public or just to look at it and go to be the inspired story of to see somebody that's maybe got one leg or one arm. But you're right. Very quickly, it's not about that. It's a race. You're watching competitive elite athletes racing, and 2 minutes into it, you've forgotten that you're commentating or you're watching a para-tri event. It's not. It's just another triathlon event, and these guys are training and working and showing their talent in just the same way as everybody else. And that's great. And that Olympic recognition, Paralympic recognition can only push that on.
Yeah, that is special. Special people, special sport. Good times.
And we'll be reading about it in 220, I guess.
Carpe diem, every single one.